come once again to discuss things.
Okay. On that note, hi everyone. Welcome to another on the note of gigantic wangs. Welcome to this week's episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is the one, the only Steve Baxey.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, hello everybody indeed. So Steve came up with our topic for this week, kind of spur of the moment last time. What are we talking about, Steve?
Today we are talking about the whole concept behind movie ratings, the MPAA, and just that system in general.
So, you know, movie ratings, MPAA, censorship, all that jazz.
Yep.
And so, for this, I rewatched a documentary that I'm really fond of called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. And that used to be on Netflix, and now it's on YouTube for the moment at least, in several parts. Just, this has nothing to do with anything, but, so I was watching that documentary again, and in the opening credits it says, produced by IFC in association with Netflix, and it's no longer on Netflix now, and I find that strange.
It's weird that it was produced by Netflix and they take it off at all. Wouldn't they want to keep all that stuff on?
You'd think so. I mean, I wonder what that means for, like, House of Cards or some of their other original programming.
Yeah, I haven't bought the Daredevil and Jessica Jones don't have sets yet, but I'd hate for at one point their seasons to just be lost.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Anyway, so I watched that series, or I watched that documentary a couple years ago, and just rewatched it for this, and came away with pretty much the same opinion. So, everyone ready? The MPAA sucks. They should shut up and be gotten rid of, or at least do major reforms. Steve?
I agree. The MPAA is awful. We need to disband it, and it's gotten to the point where they're built on such bad infrastructure that we can't even reform them. We should just get rid of them and come up with something new.
Okay, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I'm the politician. See you next time.
And we are your geeky channel. No, we'll try to make an hour out of this. It is one of those things, like, I think that it could be reformed, but you'd have to completely sweep everyone out of there, so by doing it, you're almost just remaking it anyway.
Yeah, all you'd be keeping is the name.
Yeah, it's just got the wrong people in it, the wrong people involved in running it, it's got the wrong people employed in it, and it's just, like, I guess the thing that gets me the most about the MPAA is they claim not to be a censorship board, but literally all they're doing is censorship if in everything but name.
They're so pompous about it, too, because you look at some of the creators talking about what the MPAA does and how they recommend alterations, and they talk about, like, well, maybe you can just edit around this, as if those people know how to cut a movie and what the visuals are telling them.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful. Like, I've seen so many creators that just do nothing but indie now because they can't deal with big studios and the MPAA and the whole need to market to demographics.
And that's just so annoying to me. Like, it's interesting, Steve, you and I a while back did a video about the Academy and the awards system and everything.
Yep.
And the Academy is often very against the studio model, and that gets annoying as a member of, you know, wider audiences.
Right.
But at the same time, I can't blame people for running to go do projects that the Academy will recognize when studios make you go through bullshit like the MPAA.
Especially when, like, the appeal boards and stuff of the MPAA have studio heads on them. Like, it's completely... It's one of the best examples of conflict of interest.
That was the one that got me the most about the documentary, and that's the part that I wish they'd focused more of their time on in it. because they focus a lot of time on figuring out who the film raters are.
Yeah.
And that wasn't nearly as important to find out as the ratings board, or not the ratings board, the appeals board was.
Yeah.
Because the movie should have, the documentary I feel should have been more about who was running the appeals board, because that gets just put into like basically a series of credits where we find out, oh, these are all these fucking studio executives. So this is where the real problem is, as opposed to just, okay, this is a parent with kids that are in their 30s. Yeah, okay, I guess, just, I mean...
And not to review the documentary, but they probably could have spent some more time on the Theater Owners Association, since most of the appeal board members also distribute films and buy them for theater chains.
Yeah, and so this isn't really just about the documentary itself, but it is, I think, the best look we've ever gotten into the rating system in the U.S.
Probably one of the only looks, too. I spent all day trying to research this, and there was very few credible sources on what the MPAA is like that just didn't reference the documentary.
Yeah, that's one of those things. So, I mean, to fully appreciate this episode of Geeky Gentlemen, and you know, how funny is it that we're trying to talk about this and all we can do is talk about the documentary?
It's very difficult.
So, like, to fully appreciate this episode of Geeky Gentlemen, please search in the YouTube bar, "This Film Is Not Yet Rated," and then we'll just talk more about that.
And I guess before we go, because we're going to get deeper and deeper into this, but the one thing I want to ask, and maybe just to spend a few minutes on, is just the idea of movie ratings in general. Because I think the concept of PG, PG-13R is stupid, because there's nothing about a 12-year-old that can necessarily make them different from a 13-year-old. It's an argument of the beard thing. You got to draw the line somewhere, but whatever. I don't necessarily have a problem with creating guidelines for, okay, this movie's more likely for younger kids, this movie's more likely for adults, but just the hard lines that ratings create I have a problem with. The video games board is the exact same thing, where like M and T and E and E13 and all that stuff, and none of it really matters. Mm-hmm. Especially with video games, because video game stores will just sell you copies of end games if you want them. They don't even check you the way theaters do.
I actually did have stores check me when I was a kid. So
oh, interesting.
It's weird. I had the exact opposite of you. I had video game stores check me, but not movie theaters.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Generally, I do agree with the idea that films should probably have a rating, just because, I mean, parents don't look at it anyway, and that's why children saw the Deadpool movie. But generally, you know, you're a parent, you don't want to have to fucking read a synopsis of the movie to figure out anything. You just want to know, okay, is it violent or whatever? Do I want the kid to see it? Okay, there's a G on it, then there's not going to be anything to worry about. There's a PG on it. Okay, maybe I should be there, or maybe I should look into this more. I don't want to have to fucking look up every goddamn thing about the movie just to go see it. You know, especially for more busy parents, I can seriously sympathize with just wanting to be able to throw your kids in a theater so they shut up for an hour and a half, and not wanting to have to, you know, do a wealth of research in order to feel comfortable doing that as a parent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't like where the ratings are now, because they're way too restrictive, and they do create those hard lines on a film. And I especially don't like that there's a rating that can be put on a film that specifically lets theaters, like it's code to let theaters know not to distribute it.
Yeah.
That's what annoys me. I want NC-17 and X ratings gone. I just want, I want an R+, so theaters still feel comfortable distributing it.
And honestly, by the time you break into certain R movies, there's not a lot there that NC-17 wouldn't include, except maybe some more clear sex or something. Like, at that point, it doesn't matter. At that point, it's just semantics.
Yeah, and so that just annoys me. Like, the NC-17 is there for no other purpose than specifically to ban something from theaters.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the one that pisses me off the most. An R rating, yeah, because you don't want kids going into R-rated films. Just like, generally speaking, because, I mean, every kid is different. But you wouldn't want to show a 4-year-old, I don't know, what's a really fucking just, not only in imagery, but in content and message.
American Psycho?
American Psycho, sure.
Nightcrawler, maybe?
Maybe. It's a while till the imagery starts to catch up with the tone of that movie.
RoboCop?
But we made toys for that one, Steve.
We did. We shouldn't have. We did.
At a time where action movies were made for adults but marketed to children.
I mean, I saw RoboCop as a kid, but I'm just saying, as maybe not all kids can handle a guy getting blown apart by multiple guns at once.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Saving Private Ryan, you probably don't want children to watch, especially at the beginning.
Most Tarantino movies.
Oh, every single Tarantino movie. I want to see Tarantino make a G-rated movie. That'd be fantastic.
That would be hilarious.
I don't know. I had something before you started coming up with all these better examples. Probably Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal. I'd be uncomfortable with a child watching, but then I watched those when I was fairly young.
See,
like maybe 10.
That's the crux of my problem with ratings, is every kid is different, and just based on my experience, my parents never looked at ratings. They just let me watch if I wanted to watch. When I saw Deadpool, I could not understand the clamoring for, oh my god, it's a hard R. For me, that was PG-13 at best. I really didn't see it as an R movie. And as far as ratings go, the problem I have is that people say something like PG-13 or R and look at like, okay, you have to be 13 or you have to be 17, and they act like it's this universal law now that all children are not allowed to see this kind of imagery until they reach this age, and that's bullshit, because all kids mature differently.
Yeah, and I mean, importantly, kids find a way to see it anyway.
Exactly. I mean, if you have access to the internet, you've seen a lot worse things than what's in an R movie.
Yeah, a lot worse. You can see people actually die. And that's one of those things, it's like, every kid is different, but importantly, I do think that parents should have a voice in what they're going to allow their children to watch. I mean, yes, kids will discover stuff on their own, but that doesn't mean the parents have to help introduce them to it. So I think a parent should have some say in what their child watches, and to give a quick guideline, a quick, speed like those yellow speed suggestion signs. It's not a speed limit, but it's a suggestion that you go this speed on a highway. I think parents deserve that. So I can understand the concept of having rating boards, but that's the thing. It's not a rating to... It's the MPAA's rhetoric of what they are sounds fine, but that's not how they're actually operating.
Yeah.
They're saying they're putting themselves out there as if they are just something to give parents a guideline to go by and something for artists to be able to express themselves freely. That's what they're saying they are, and if they were that would be great, but they're not. What they are is a censorship board. But once again, the only reason to create an NC-17 rating is specifically to keep the movie from being distributed.
Yeah, exactly. The documentary spends a lot of time comparing the ideas of, like, what is it with violence versus sex, and then heterosexual sex versus homosexual, and how one's NC-17 regardless of how much or how little they show.
Oh my god, But I'm a Cheerleader is one of the least sexy movies I've ever watched.
Me too. I don't understand what the hell they were thinking with that.
Yeah, seriously, it is nothing but just, like, it's uncomfortable conversations that it would lead to. Because what if you take your daughter to that and she comes out of it thinking, oh my god, I identify with this 100%. I must be a lesbian. Mom, I'm a lesbian. And parents just don't want to have that conversation, apparently. And so they put that NC-17 on it specifically to prevent those conversations from taking place.
Yeah, I agree. And especially when you look at the types of people they put on the rating board and the way Jack Valenti talks about these things, it's very clearly a specific demographic of people or types of people that want these movies censored. Like, just the idea that they would have two religious figures on the appeals board. Like, it's very clearly people that don't approve of more progressive ideas in film.
Oh, certainly, and that's why, like, one of my favorite points was the director of But I'm a Cheerleader. It's like, what do they mean by average Americans?
Yeah.
I'm an American. I was born in this country. I have a family. I have a child. I'm married. Why can't I be on that board? And then they ask one of the guys, were there ever any gay people? Not that we're out.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the problem, is that board, because it's so secretive, hasn't changed to reflect actual demographics. They've just perpetuated the same cultural stigmas for the sake of dumb ratings.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent that if anyone ever tells you that they're 100% normal, then they're a fucking liar. Because I think everyone's got their shit, everyone's weird in their own way, and no one conforms to this idea of normality perfectly. And if they do, then they're probably actually a serial killer.
Yeah, normal is being a little bit weird.
Right. And so just that whole idea I just find so completely just stupid. So I guess, Steve, let's transition a bit and talk about, because I think we can both agree that to some extent or another, a rating system just to give parents an idea of what they're going to take their kids into is at least conceptually acceptable. So let's talk about a rating system that we would put in place.
Okay, yeah. I really liked what Kevin Smith mentioned, and that documentary was made like at least 10 years ago, so it's back when Kevin Smith wasn't a whore. That's the best way to describe him at this point. You give him money and he will talk for you. But he described this system of R, or that when you make movies that are R, you have to do more along the lines of like rape and violence to women, because it's so many movies use that as a plot device, and it's a regression of culture before it's giving you any sort of right idea. And so the weight of a woman in peril or rape should be felt, and so it should be a higher restriction, even more so than murder, because in PG-13, as long as there's no blood, you can shoot everyone.
Yeah.
So I think the way that he described the system, along with a couple other people, is that the less blood there is, the higher the rating, because the less regard for life is presented in that content.
That's an interesting idea. I would, I guess, be more of a proponent of something that you could do mathematically. Because I actually do kind of like the counting the fucks, as it were. I kind of like the idea. Okay, you say these many curse words in your movie. Like you give a certain allotment for the number of curse words you're allowed to get away with for each rating. Because I mean, you ever tell you about when my dad accidentally rented Goodfellas for me?
No, but that sounds awesome.
So we were at Blockbuster, and I wanted to rent the Ninja Turtles movie, but someone had fucked up and somehow put Goodfellas in the case for the Ninja Turtles movie, and so my dad had gotten tired of seeing the Ninja Turtles movie like 150 times at that point, so he just let me go watch it in my room. and I go, Dad, he hit the guy right in his fuck! So, certainly, you don't want to expose particularly young children to too much language. So, G, maybe you get away with one curse word. PG, 5 at the most. PG-13, we get a dramatic step up. R, basically unlimited. And after, I don't know, 20 to 25, then you're in our territory and you can just say what the fuck you want. Because, I mean, I feel like if you have more than 25 curse words in your movie, you're not really aiming for PG-13 to begin with. And then, for violence and stuff, I would actually... I do like the idea of blood thing. I would just go more for, okay, how many violent things are happening, and how many of those things are we actually seeing happen on screen? Because, there's a big difference between a like The Dark Knight I consider to be a very violent movie, but we don't see a ton of that violence, you know? Particularly the lethal violence we don't see, so I think that's safer to just count as an act of violence, so you can do kind of like here's how you can do maybe like a Venn diagram thing of here's how many acts of violence there are, here's how many of them we actually see, and as those two overlap more and more, the closer you get to an R. I think that, because then it's a reasonable, understandable way. And if someone goes, well, what if I want to get my movie down to a PG-13? You can go, okay, well, here's how many acts we see, and here's how many acts happen, so if you can make these two overlap less, that's a possibility. Or you have these many curse words in your movie, and we just don't feel comfortable giving that the PG-13 rating or the PG rating at this point, so if you can cut those out or replace them or whatever, that's an option too. So you can actually give an answer for how to get down to a lower rating.
2 points about that. The first being, I'm not sure how many people know this story. It's kind of famous, so probably a lot of people do, but Jim Steranko, when he was doing the Nick Fury S.H.I.E.L.D. comic, had a fully clothed scene where Nick Fury was making out and about to have sex with this woman. And the Comics Code Authority was like, you can't do that. So they got rid of the entire scene except for the instance where they're about to kiss, and then made a blown-up panel of Nick Fury's gun in its holster.
Yes, I remember that.
And so it's not what he wanted to do, but that kind of pseudo-censorship made the level of suggestiveness of that scene even greater, and it works. So I like your pitch for that. My only concern about it is just I don't really believe in cursing as a deterrent. Like, I don't think there should be such a thing as there are some words kids shouldn't say. Like, I just don't understand that. I don't understand...
And you're the one on Geekvolution.
I know. I'm not saying I like it there either, but I just respect Cap's rule. It's just I don't understand what makes shit worse than crap and what makes sex better than fuck.
No, I get you. I certainly understand that. Again, I'm just kind of going for, it's weird because I'm trying not to contradict myself blatantly here. It's one of those things where, generally speaking, most people do not want their kids running around saying profanities.
Right.
And, you can certainly argue for why that's the case. But, kids are little fucking monkeys. They pick up just whatever they see happening a lot. So when you see characters cursing and stuff, and just on the general consensus that people do not want their children to curse, we probably shouldn't show children media in which there's a lot of cursing then. And so I like that it's just, it's not censorship because you can still make that movie and the hardest rating you're going to get is an R, or maybe like an R with like a little, asterisk for what particularly made this get an R. So R for excessive cursing or R for excessive nudity or something. But it'd still be guaranteed to be distributed at that point.
And there'd be no age restrictions on the way you're putting it. It would just be content.
Yeah, it's just, okay, well, here's the R. I'd rename PG-13 to something else.
It used to have a different name. What was it?
Well, no, it used to just be PG, but too many things... Like, PG used to... Like, now it means practically G.
Right.
But back in the day, fucking Return to Oz was PG, and there's a scene where someone runs down a hallway with their head cut off. So just imagine that on your PG movie today. So, like, that's why they invented PG-13. It's because they wanted a middle step between PG and R. So I just rename it because I don't like the age restriction idea. So I like the idea of just giving very understandable, reasonable limits on what differentiates these ratings, and the fact that none of these ratings are going to be something that a movie theater will refuse to distribute, and... Excuse me, sorry, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. Great night to do a podcast. So making sure none of those ratings, like, block a film from being distributed, making sure that it's not... you're not stepping on anyone's artistic intent. by saying you have to conform to this, or this rating. I think out of doing this, we just see a lot more films rated R, and I think most directors would be comfortable with that. I don't think most directors want to make a hardcore gangster film with a bunch of sex, violence, and cursing that kids can watch.
No, that makes sense. I think part of what the problem is that right now, as far as rating boards go, the act of rating a movie, I think, is a little bit too easy. It's just what upsets your comfortable, more conservative, not politically, but just more socially conservative mindset. And then you just put a number on it and you made a rating. But I think part of what we're talking about is the film presents something, and depending on the consequences of that presentation, you get a rating.
And I don't know how much I'd be comfortable with that, because everyone interprets things differently.
Exactly, but that's why you'd have like a board of multiple people. Is like some people see a war film as showing too much, others think it's necessary, and so you have a discussion about it, and the rating just reflects, okay, this is what's going on, maybe your kid can handle it, maybe they can't. And that's just up to the parent.
Yeah, and like I said, that's kind of, just because that's kind of an iffy ground where everyone experiences things differently, I kind of just like the more mathematical approach to it, where there's a very clear list of things for why this got this rating. Yeah. And if the filmmaker really wants to reduce the rating so that it can be distributed to more people, then they have that option available. But if they're guaranteed distribution, with an R rating, I don't think they'd care as much.
Well, it seems like the movie industry just wrote itself into a corner with the rating system, because now they've created a world where everything needs to be in the PG to PG-13 range to make a ton of money. But if you just go on based on your system, then everything makes money. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason to have this. It financially doesn't make any sense.
Again, I think the reason to have the ratings board is just to give parents...
Oh, no, I get that. I just mean like the way it is now.
Oh, certainly.
Like the way it is now, it's writing yourself into a financial corner when it could be better.
Mm-hmm. And the problem is we can't expect reform like this, particularly with my system, because now everyone has a very particular idea of what an R-rated movie is. Yeah. And there would be and this would mean that there would be soft R's and hard R's. That would probably be the most extreme, as opposed to like R plus or whatever. It'd probably be HR.
Yeah.
Hard R and SR, soft R. Just to create that slight distinction there.
Part of the problem also is sometimes parents look at ratings too much, but then the other problem is that sometimes they don't look at them at all. Yeah. So, like, the classic example now is parents taking their kids to Watchmen because it's a superhero movie.
Oh, God, that was so funny.
It's ridiculous, and that just comes from, oh, they're in costumes. Clearly, it must be for kids. And I think this is where trailers come in, because trailers don't have to show you exactly the movie you're getting, but they should at least tell you the kind of people they're aiming for. And I think a lot of times we do way too much misdirection with trailers.
Didn't Deadpool put out some trailers that made it look like a romantic comedy?
It did, and that was hilarious. But
well, like, it reminds me of this, I wonder if it's still on YouTube. Someone cut scenes from American Psycho to make it look like a crappy romantic comedy.
Yeah.
And it's fucking hysterical.
Yeah, no, there's lots of stuff like that, particularly with hardcore R movies.
Yeah, I really enjoy things like that.
Yeah, no, they're great, but I think part of it is just, I don't think trailers do their job well enough right now. Mostly because we get way too many of them, and we're so concerned with getting people in theaters as much as possible that we're not really respecting what people want their trailers to be, or what people want to sell their movie as. Like, there's a reason Christopher Nolan is so involved in the marketing for his movies, because he doesn't want people to sell it as action stuff. And that's part of the reason people have a bitter taste in their mouth about Captain America First Avengers, because those trailers are not that movie.
Oh, yeah, those trailers still kind of leave that movie kind of iffy for me at times.
Yeah, because that trailer was sold on a montage that's only like 5 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, and to be fair, I still kind of want to see that movie.
I do too. I do too. I mean, I love First Avenger, but yeah, I would love to see that movie too.
Like, I would like Red Skull to actually feel like the villain of the movie as opposed to just there. But that's neither here nor there. Certainly, and it's really funny, because, I mean, Watchmen was sold terribly by its trailers. It was sold as a dumb action movie, and it certainly has dumb action movie scenes that, like, were maybe an over-interpretation of things from the comic book, but there's a lot more to that movie than the trailers would lead you to believe. And so, just that people went into that expecting Avengers and came out with Watchmen was kind of a thing that happened.
Yeah, and you always got to be careful with these things. I feel like part of the problem is that everyone wants to draw hard lines everywhere, and you can't, because I say, just to contradict myself, I say that trailers don't do a good job of selling the movie you're actually getting, but Iron Man 3's trailer is nothing like the movie, and that's the point.
Yeah, because they're trying to trick you.
Yeah, like, the whole point of the movie is look at what kind of sheep we are based on what we're fed in the media, and now everyone's pissed off about the Mandarin twist because they believed what they saw.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and then at that point you wouldn't want the trailer to be any different. Mm-hmm. And same with the Lego movie. The Lego movie is nothing like the trailers, and that's the point.
Yeah, that movie had so much damn heart, and it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, no one
was
called
expecting
that movie.
a 2-hour toy commercial.
Yeah, no one predicted
that's not what happened at all. And it's interesting, because, I mean, while I still understand why people are a little annoyed with the Mandarin twist, my thing is still, what the fuck was he planning to do with Pepper Potts?
It's all a trophy thing, though, right? Because that does all ultimately work into his plan.
I still don't know. I still think that was a really iffy move on his part. Like, why would you give your hostage the slightest chance of having superpowers? I will never understand that. We have you perfectly secured as our hostage. Let's maybe throw the dice, see if he gets superpowers, see what happens. That always seemed crazy to me.
I think it works in the movie, but we're not reviewing that, so...
I once again, I've only seen that movie one time, and that has been the thing that stuck with me the most. It's like, what the hell was he thinking? Anyway, sorry.
No,
I agree though. It is people. People just want a strict answer, and it's art that we're talking about. Even when it's a big dumb studio thing, it's still in one way, shape, or form art. And so it needs to be interpreted in context, and people just don't have the fucking time for that shit.
There's a great scene. When I did my Daredevil analysis, I had to work the scene into the end of it because I just thought it was perfect, where Kingpin is talking to Ben Urich, and he's saying issues that matter require too much time, too much thought, and they take too much time away from, like, texting and 1,000 channels on the satellite dish. And I love that scene. I love how that whole show is playing on how difficult art is as a concept, yet how ingrained into us it is. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show that things like ratings and trailers and stuff, they alter how we present art, and so we should be thinking about them, but there's still no right answer to how we should regulate them.
Yep. And that's the problem with trying to do the ratings thing. That's why I like what I was suggesting. It's just something mathematical so that parents can be happy and people can have some idea of what they're getting into. Because, I mean, you know, I've gone on date nights and I don't always want to see someone get, you know, beaten to a bloody pulp and, you know, murdered on screen when I'm trying to get lucky later.
That kills me, right?
A little bit. So I want some kind of idea of what I'm going to walk into here.
It Follows is not a date movie.
No. It Follows is a pretty good movie to show, like, you know how...
It Follows is an abstinence movie.
Yeah, you know how they have, like, abstinence-only programs? Just get rid of the speakers and just show the kids It Follows.
That movie is still in my brain. But anyway.
Yeah. So, like, it's one of those things where you want just a general kind of thing, but we take it too far. We want it to be a simple, quick yes or no answer, and you can kind of get just a general idea, but what you can't do is give someone a yes or no. And that's the weird line that the MPAA is trying to walk and just turning it into a censorship board for doing.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this also just goes back to what we were saying a few weeks ago when we were talking about critics getting too harsh and this idea of a nuanced opinion that's slowly disappearing, and the rating system is part of that G is supposed to mean G and PG is supposed to mean PG, but what the hell do they really mean?
I don't know what the hell the difference between G and PG is.
I still don't get that, yeah.
Like I said, back when they first were doing it and PG-13 wasn't a thing, there was a difference. But in this day and age, I have no idea what a PG movie is and what a G movie is.
Do most Pixar movies get PG or G?
I believe they get PG, but I don't know why.
Okay.
Because there's nothing in those movies that you cannot show to a 2-year-old.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, I don't want Toy Story to be a PG. I want that to be a G.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird.
I don't understand that whatsoever. PG-13, I get it. Once again, we need to name it something else.
Yeah. Yeah, but like there's a clear... The rating system, for the most part, if you use it appropriately, there's a clear differentiation between young children, teenagers, and adults.
Yeah.
And a lot of that gets muddied with age, but then when you introduce things like PG versus G, it just doesn't make any sense. It's semantics.
Yeah, because parental guidance... What the hell is guidance compared to parental guidance? What, do you give the kid a GPS?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That doesn't even make sense anymore. It's such a head-scratching thing for me, because I just don't understand the concept of why you need to introduce censorship in art, because that defeats the purpose of art. And how someone can actively be censoring and then not think that they are. Because here's a question to get us to the documentary again, and I guess just generally to the MPAA. Steve, do you think that the MPAA buys their own bullshit? Do you think that they honestly believe they are not a censorship board and that they are honestly just trying to provide guidance to parents? Or do you think that they know they're secretly a censorship board and that they're just putting rhetoric out there?
I think they have to know that. I think with the way they handle things, particularly with the secrecy and particularly with the fact that they've got people from the film industry on their boards, I think they have to know that. And I think they market themselves with that bullcrap to make sure no one is raising an eyebrow when those kinds of details come up.
See, it's interesting. I found myself, to get this more generally again, I found myself asking this question about a lot of things lately. Like, I legitimately wonder how many people honestly believe, like, even if they're, like, actively in the wrong, I wonder how much they honestly believe the rhetoric that they're putting out to the public, and that what they're doing is serving that rhetoric and not this other end. Like, that's what I've started to wonder about some of these men's right groups things.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys, you'll hear them talk, oh no, I'm a true egalitarian where I believe everything's about equality, but then you'll, like, see the behind closed doors stuff because they're posting it on fucking public forums. You'll see some behind closed doors stuff where they're like, oh, women are just whores and all you gotta do is just treat bitches like queens and queens like bitches, and then all of them will clamor to sleep with you. I'm like, no, you're just a sexist little pig, and you're just shitty that no one wants to suck your dick. So, like, you know, I agree with the rhetoric of everyone should just be completely equal, and we shouldn't have to take these things into consideration. Yes, I'm behind you 100%, but then there's what you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of this kind of stuff is what they're saying to the public, and this just general with stuff. I honestly wonder if Trump actually believes what he's saying is going to help, or if he's just trying to fearmonger and manipulate. I don't know at times.
No,
I don't know if he's a moron or if he's a genius.
I always thought that he was a deformed xenomorph, but yeah.
So I find myself wondering about that. Is like, how much of it is actually buying your own bullshit, and how much of it is, covering with bullshit?
A lot of that, I think, a lot of that gets answered when you look at how these things were founded and you look at the key people behind them. Because I was, after the documentary, I stopped and tried to find a bunch of interviews with Jack Valenti, who was in charge of it for like 30 years, and you listen to that guy speak, and you know he's a manipulative little asshole. Like, it's so obvious just looking at him that this guy does not buy what he's saying, and he's always got that smirk on his face, like he's trying to outwit you. And I really don't think the MPAA at any point buys its own bullshit, but they may have gotten to themselves to a kind of Stockholm syndrome now, where they've just perpetuated that rhetoric so long that now they're in denial about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that goes to their reactions to people's appeals and the fact that they bring in a fucking lawyer before they bring in anyone in charge of the board.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts how that all works. And the fact that they won't put anything on public record is the most offensive part of it, right?
No, it's bullcrap. If you're going to censor someone else's work, you have to be public and you have to face them.
Yeah. And, like, there's a guy that made the point really early on in the documentary where he's like, you know, it wouldn't be good. Like, both of them are terrible, but it would be better if the government were the ones censoring it, because at least that would be subject to some kind of judiciary public hearing.
Yeah.
And this stuff just isn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's that bullshit where they act like, oh, well, it's a private organization, so we're really only accountable to ourselves, and you don't have to accept that whole bullshit line they feed. You don't have to accept the rating, it just means no one gets to see your movie. Well, no, it's because you are like a fundamental part of the process now. There's no way to get the movie in theaters without you. No theater is going to accept a film that's not rated, or, well, there are theaters that will accept films that are not rated, but they're not the majority of theaters. I hate backtracking on stuff. I gotta stop doing that. Like, I do a pretty good job of just not giving a fuck, and then I'll correct if someone brings it up, but I just generally don't like when someone can't make a point without backtracking and, like, covering their ass on a point.
But to your point,
and I'm doing that right now, but
to your point, commercial big theaters don't carry unrated movies. Things like Regal and AMC don't carry unrated movies.
Exactly. Do you guys have Carmike out there or no?
Yeah.
Okay, just curious. Yeah, they don't. They won't. And I mean, to be fair, there's no fucking business in it, because they're gonna get fucking a lot of the places are gonna get goddamn protests from good old fashioned Christian folk. if they try to screen NC-17 movies and just let, you know, children in.
I think it's an interesting comparison between the rating system of the MPAA and the Comics Code Authority.
Oh, sorry.
Because there were famously tons of issues, particularly from the 70s, that dealt with drugs, both in Spider-Man and Teen Titans and Green Arrow and stuff, that were not allowed to come out based on the Comics Code Authority, but the Code Authority had no connection to distribution. So if you just put out a comic without a seal, no one gave a fuck. So
yeah,
if the theater chains weren't in bed with the MPAA, this wouldn't matter and they would have died out.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories about the Comics Code Authority that I think really, really helped to show just what the problem with censorship is, even when it's like, you know, quote unquote, with the best intentions, there are no good intentions. There's an old issue of an EC Comics book, I think it's like Weird Tales or whatever, where this astronaut goes to a planet full of robots. There are blue robots and there are yellow robots, and the blue robots are second-class citizens to the yellow robots. Like, they have to sit at the back of the bus, they have to go eat in their own restaurants and stuff because they need to know their place. And the astronaut's being given a tour of this planet and shown what kind of society they have. And then at the end, the astronaut calls to the Galactic Federation or whatever and lets them know that this planet isn't ready to join yet because their society hasn't evolved far enough. And then the astronaut takes off his helmet and he's a black guy. And that's a great, great social commentary because it was late 50s, maybe early 60s that this damn book came out.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic.
And the Censorship Board, the Comics Code Authority, wouldn't publish it. And, he showed it to the guy, and the guy was like, no, I'm not publishing that. You can't have a nigger be an astronaut. They just wouldn't do it. So it's like, the person in charge is susceptible to moral bankruptcy. When you leave it completely up to their personal taste, what they think is right and wrong, it's completely susceptible. So, when you make it a non-objective process, then it becomes immediately corrupted.
Yeah. And
we see that with a lot of the films that they mention in This Film Is Not Yet Rated. A lot of them are about, LGBT issues, and so since that makes people uncomfortable, they automatically find more wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of these films that need to be seen. I think that was the point a lot of those creators were making, which is, particularly the one, the cheerleader one, where that director wanted to make sure, 16-year-old girls got to see that movie. It was for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't allowed, it wasn't given a proper rating. And some of that also just comes to unintelligent consumption of art, because some people think that movies should be nothing but schlock entertainment. There's a review for Civil War that came out recently where the guy says, I don't want my superhero movies to make me think. That was his entire review, and he says he doesn't like Civil War because it made him think. And if people like that are out there, fine, cool, but you can't make that the standard for everyone. And so if you don't want people to think about these issues, then you can say that all you want, but don't make it so that other people can't make up their own mind about it.
Yeah. God forbid they make you don't want your superhero movies to make you think. Fine, go see old, shitty superhero movies.
Yeah, go watch Elektra, go watch Catwoman, go watch Superman 4.
No, Superman 4 is actually about something, just really shittily.
It's hilarious, though.
I know you're not a big Nostalgia Critic fan or anything, but I really like his... he and Lucara did a review of Superman 4.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, they do the scene where Superman's at the UN, and he's going to get rid of all the nuclear weapons. And it's like, okay, it's pop quiz time. You are Israel. A nation surrounded by people who want to see you wiped off the face of the earth. The only thing in your mind protecting you is nuclear weapons. Superman's gonna get rid of them. What do? Stand and cheer. And ignoring completely all the stuff that's wrong with that interpretation of events, that was still fucking hilarious.
Oh, it is. That's great.
Yeah. So just all kinds of shit like that just makes me laugh my ass off. Yeah. No, Superman 4 is a very poor interpretation of how to have a superhero address a social issue, or a social or a global issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but then there would be the difference between giving someone Batman 89 and giving them The Dark Knight. If you don't want to think about the things Dark Knight's going to make you think about, fine, go watch 89, but don't make it so no one else can see Dark Knight. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I don't know why I've been using this damn term so much lately, but it feels like it's been more and more applicable, and that scares me. You ever heard the quote-unquote sociology theory of people are crabs in a bucket?
Yes.
Yeah,
for those who don't know sociology too, that's hilarious.
Sociology is just bad philosophy backed up by bad science.
So is psychology to a degree.
Sometimes, but less so. Anyway, there's this great little example that someone put out there, and I really, really think it's incredibly applicable to the human race at times. It makes me sad. But, so if you take a crab and you put it in a bucket on its own, it'll crawl out, flip you off, and just walk away without any problem. Because, fuck you, you put it in a bucket. And it's a crab, doesn't have to deal with your shit. But, if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, to the point where it is almost overflowing with crabs, none of them will get out they will all try simultaneously, and any time that any one of them starts to get out, the others will grab it and pull it back in. It feels like that. It's like, I don't want my superhero movies to make me think. Well, if you don't want to think, that's fine, but if other people want to think, don't make them idiots too. Why do they have to suffer because you want to be left in ignorance? That pisses me off.
No, I agree with you. I think maybe this is a good place to at least touch on the subject, because this could be its own video, this could be its own series of videos, but a lot of people are going to listen to this and start bringing up the idea of political correctness.
Okay, here we go.
Because I wanted to stave that off as long as possible, but I feel like, particularly when we talk about that with other people, I think this would inherently come up, and maybe we should address it.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so let me just say, I personally not actually believe in political correctness as that big a deal. I think that political correctness was a term invented by assholes to justify there being an asshole.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump goes on his whole thing about how he's not politically correct. He doesn't care about being politically correct. No, what you don't care about is the fact that you're an asshole. You don't want to just come out and say that you're an asshole. So you invent a term that inherently sounds negative because you don't want to admit you're an asshole. So you say, oh, well, I'm not an asshole, I'm just not politically correct. And so politically correct, it sounds all calculated and manipulative and pandery. And so it makes you, by saying I'm not politically correct, you're actually saying, yeah, I'm not trying to manipulate you, I'm just giving it to you how I see it, I'm just being frank with you. And that's fine, you can be frank, you can be non-politically correct and not care if you hurt someone's feelings by saying something because you feel that it is the honest truth and you need to say it, but that doesn't excuse you from being an asshole. Being politically correct is often a side effect of just not being an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot like the term with social justice warrior, where it was invented to mean a thing and to demonize a particular way of thinking. And now they've both taken on two extremes that extend beyond what they actually mean. So people are starting to say political correctness is anti-free speech, which it's not.
Yeah. Carlin... God, I miss that man.
Carlin
did a great bit where he was talking about political correctness is fascism, because it's telling you how to think. And to one extent or another, I can understand and agree with that perspective, but his definition of political correctness is not Trump's definition of political correctness.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's this idea that people have of, oh no, it means one particular thing. And people don't want to feel like they have to be politically correct. I'm like, you don't. You can say gypsy. It still kind of makes... Like, you can say gypsy, and I'll accept someone saying gypsy to a certain extent that they don't know what that term means. That they don't know that that term is legitimately a racial slur on the same level as nigger.
Right.
But when you find out what that term means, and you dismiss it as, oh, well, I'm just not politically correct, so I'm just going to keep using it, then you are legitimately accepting that you are perfectly comfortable using a racial slur that demonizes and hurts people who it applies to. And that makes you an asshole at that point.
Exactly. And so, to tie that into movies, there will be a point where you make movies that are just offensive fascist propaganda. And so, when you limit people's viewing of those, it's not the same thing as limiting people's viewings of movies that address different tastes. So, if you just want to watch Batman '89 and you censor people watching Dark Knight, that's bad. But if you censor people watching snuff films, that's a different thing. It's a different argument, even though people are going to try and rope them in together.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, oh well, you've accepted this, so let's go all the way. It's reductio ad absurdum, right? It's like, okay, well, you don't believe in any censorship? Well, fine, we'll just start putting snuff in movie theaters and selling it to kiddies on the street. No, that's not the logical extent of what I'm saying. Obviously, we don't want to put snuff films in theaters. Do you know how annoying it would be if you just turned on the TV in the morning to, like, put on some noise while you're getting ready and then there was snuff on TV? Snuff is the worst thing in the morning. Bob Saget, you're a great man, too. That asshole scream. I'll not tell the Bob Saget story. Anyway, no, so, yeah, there's a logical extension. When you're talking to a certain extent, you don't believe in censorship. Everyone believes in censorship to a certain extent, unless you're, I guess, a libertarian, which is, you really start to get into the batshit crazy stuff for libertarians. But anyway, everyone believes in a certain level of censorship because there's censorship in child pornography. That's not something that we find acceptable because it breaks a law, so even if you didn't create it, you're helping to support the laws that were broken in order to make it, so you're guilty of the crime of making it in some sense, which is why we censor the production of it and the distribution of it.
Right.
So everyone kind of believes in censorship to one extent or another, again, unless you're a fucking nutcase. But it's where do you draw the line, and most people, I would like to think, would draw the line at pretty much just before the extremes.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the idea that if you give a bunch of people a moral quandary, they'll all probably solve it the same way, they'll just justify it differently.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. I've not heard that before, but I think I could agree with that one.
It's a thing that comes up a lot with moral theory. Like, you throw Kant and Hume in a room together, they'll both do the same thing. They'll just argue with each other about why.
Oh, yeah, there's a great existentialist comic about that,
yeah.
where Kant was stopping a mugger on the street, and, what's her name? Dubois or whatever.
Sartre's girl.
She comes in and stops him from stopping the mugger because Kant is all like, oh, well, it's wrong all the time. And she's like, no, that moral philosophy is wrong. So what? We should just let the mugger go? No, I'm going to stop him for completely different reasons. And while they're sitting there arguing, the mugger fucking gets away.
Yeah, exactly. It's that situation.
Yeah, so you will always get to... Most reasonable people will get to a reasonable solution that they can all agree on. It's just different of how different roads get the same place. I can agree with that one. So censorship and political correctness is just this whole thing. It's interesting to hear us too. I think we're some of the most liberal people I've heard in our little circle on YouTube.
Probably so.
Especially since Alex deleted his channel.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go with Twitter, then we're not. But on YouTube, probably.
So, like, it's weird to hear us talk about, no, fuck political correctness. That is bullshit. But being politically correct for the sake of being politically correct is entirely different than being politically correct for the sake of not being an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes down to how you define your terms, and people act like that's not important, but it is.
Oh, it is incredibly important.
You won't believe how many arguments are settled just by, wait, do you mean what I think you mean?
Oh my god. There's the history of philosophy right there. It's like, oh, it turns out I misinterpreted that.
It's classic. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because censorship, MPAA, a lot of that debate feeds into this. I posted something on Facebook to the effect of the MPAA should be disbanded, and someone took that as meaning, yeah, down with political correctness. I'm like, no, not that at all.
It's so confusing how that all works. That people are incapable of separating just general niceness with just I don't know, Steve. I don't understand this. I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
No, I don't either, Dr. Farnsworth.
I prefer the robot lady.
The other place I wanted to take this, just so we get back to maybe some more concrete MPAA stuff, is a lot of times when we rate movies like R or PG-13 or whatever, it's only for theatrical runs, and then when they hit DVD or Blu-ray or any sort of distribution chain, there'll be a secondary version of it that starts to proliferate, and then the standard theatrical cut goes away. So, like, Batman vs. Superman's going to come out as an R-rated Ultimate Cut. I bet you money that at some point we're just going to phase out the PG-13 cut entirely. We did the same thing with the Die Hard movies. We've done the same thing with a lot of Shane Black movies. And so ratings only seem to matter as far as general box office goes. Because once it's out of the theater circuit, no one seems to pay attention anymore. I can't tell you the last time I looked at a DVD cover and looked at the rating.
Yeah.
Or anyone has, for that matter.
I'm trying to even place where the rating's located. I know it's probably going to be somewhere on the back. And there's always that information down at the bottom. But God, I'm having trouble thinking of that.
Unless it's marketed as the unrated cut on the front, you usually don't look for the back rating. Because, I mean, it took me forever to realize, oh, John Wick was rated R?
Is there an unrated cut? Like, I know Deadpool recently came out on DVD and stuff. Did that have an unrated version?
I think it did. I didn't buy it yet, so I don't know.
I kind of want to watch that because I feel like the studio, knowing what I know about the movie, and you said you wanted to bring up Deadpool, knowing what I know about the, history of how that movie got made and everything, and how absolutely no confidence Fox had in it, I wouldn't be surprised if they made them cut a bunch of shit, even though they were marketing it as an R-rated Deadpool movie.
Surprisingly, they didn't make them cut too much. A lot of what did get cut is just... the scene where Wade first shows up to Weaseling and they have that whole run of what your face looks like? Mm-hmm. That was longer, and so they cut that because some of the jokes just got overly raunchy, but it was also just the fact that they kept going and going and going and going, and it's a pacing issue. And then there are just scenes here and there where, like, it's more of a scene going longer than it should before it's about you can't show that at a theater.
Gotcha.
And so I haven't seen the deleted scenes, but from what I've understood of the director, a lot of the changes made just had to do with keeping the film going as opposed to this is bad.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I would be curious about that because I know, like I said, Fox had no confidence in it, and now it has made more than all of the other X-Men movies, which is just hilarious. They have to bring that up in the sequel. That's going to be such a good fucking joke. It's going to, like, go to the X-Mansion, and this time everyone's going to fucking be there. It's like, oh yeah, now you motherfuckers are here.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Just stuff like that is really funny to me. And so, like, you don't think the Deadpool's a very hard R?
No.
And I'd agree. I just think that, once again, they were really pushing just to get it R-rated in the first place. Because I do remember that, like, that movie was in development hell for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember Fox. Yeah, I do remember Fox saying that now they were going to make it a PG-13. So I think they had to fight just to get it to be an R at all. And I think they just sold it as a harder R than it really was.
Part of it is because that movie is designed as, we're sorry for X-Men Origins Wolverine, here is your real Deadpool. So, and the Deadpool comics, for the most part, are pretty insane as far as violence and stuff goes, and just the nature of their content. Like Blind Al getting tortured and stuff in the Joe Case run, whatever, it's freaky. But the Deadpool comics are so, I guess to just use movie terms, so hard R, and X-Men Origins Wolverine created such a bad version of Deadpool that they had to market it to the people that like that about the comics, and so they had to differentiate it from the main X franchise as much as possible, and so they kept pulling it as, no, this is hard R, this is hard R, this is hard R. The issue, though, is the story they told doesn't go anywhere near as far as any of the comics ever really do.
I was really surprised that they didn't have the death thing in there.
Yeah.
I was really surprised they didn't have him falling in love with death. And I don't know, maybe that's just too far for them, or maybe it's...
It might even be a rights thing. Maybe Marvel owns death.
Yeah, that was... Maybe Marvel owns death. Well, why not?
Well, that explains why why only DC characters have died so far on film.
Except for Quicksilver.
Except for Quicksilver.
Everyone got sad. I meant to ask you just real quick, nothing to do with anything. Did you like the Quicksilver scene in Apocalypse?
No. I thought it...
Really?
My problem with the Quicksilver scene in the second one is that it missed the point of what made the first one so interesting and so well directed. Like, it's technically more advanced than the first scene, but the way it's done, it's just Quicksilver dicking around despite the context of that situation, and the whole context is the most contrived nonsense ever, of, he just happens to arrive right before the explosion, and he has no reason to believe there's an explosion happening, yet he runs through the whole building and gets down to the basement right to the center of the explosion before it actually goes off.
Gotcha. No, that's fair. I just meant, just the visual of the whole thing that I thought was really fun.
The visual is great, it's just, in the context of the movie, it makes no sense.
Fair enough. I don't know. Like I said, I actually thought about this the other day, and I've enjoyed, I think, every superhero movie I've seen. Admittedly, I haven't seen Fan Four Stick. I think I've enjoyed every superhero movie I've seen since 2005, to one extent or another. So I just really can't complain about it anymore. I'm just like, yeah, I enjoyed them to varying degrees.
And part of it is just people get so annoying with those arguments.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't want to get into it.
Yeah, but regardless, it's just one of those things where, I was really surprised that they didn't pull the death thing off in the Deadpool movie, but again, yeah, that could be a rights issue. Ultimately, I still like what they did with that. I think people missed the point where oh, well, yeah, sure, they're commenting on the fact that it's a really cliche superhero action movie story, but they're not commenting on every single aspect of that. Why aren't they commenting on the fact that she's a damsel in distress? Because sometimes just using the trope is enough of a commentary. It doesn't have to get that meta. I know it's Deadpool, but it really doesn't have to get that meta. At that point, it's just distracting.
And I mean, my only counter to that would just be, well, it mentions that these are problems, and then it perpetuates the problems, but I don't think it really makes fun of anything. And what it makes fun of is more like comic booky than it is superhero movie.
Fair enough. I just think that, it's part of making fun of tropes means using the tropes.
No, that's fair. It's just like for example, I love Colossus's line where he's like, house blowing up builds character, but there has only been one instance in all of the X-Men movies of the house blowing up, and that's Apocalypse, which came out after.
It's the X-Men timeline, though, Steve. It's okay. It did happen. No, actually, it did happen, because the Apocalypse was technically before the Deadpool movie, so there.
Deadpool exists in a weird...
Steve!
But to the audience, that joke doesn't play. It shouldn't play.
It shouldn't, but we know intrinsically.
And then, also, superheroes kill all the time in the movies. I don't know why Deadpool's any different, and even so, I feel like a lot of his kills are more tame than the fights we see in Apocalypse.
Certainly, Wolverine's fucking murderer.
Yeah, Apocalypse.
Even going back to X2.
Huh?
Even going back to X2, Wolverine's a fucking murderer.
Yeah, and we've seen tons of superhero violence scenes where people just die and get turned into kebabs. Deadpool didn't do anything worse. It was, aside from some of the sex stuff, it's really tame.
I do admit, I never thought I'd see a superhero get pegged by his girlfriend.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Olivia Munn turned that role down, but ultimately she was a better character than Psylocke.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I feel like a lot of what I like about that movie is just how much they did to, how much fuel they gave people that wanted to hate it, and almost no one did.
Right.
Like, particularly the Deadpool getting pegged by his girlfriend thing. That scene, could you imagine if people hated this movie, how much we would just be talking about that one scene as, like, the perfect example of everything that is wrong with it? So, like, I love that they were so confident in the movie that they made that they threw stuff in there like that, particularly to give people targets to fire at that they just couldn't anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
So just stuff like that I really appreciate about that film. And that's our review of Deadpool. What were we talking about?
I had a point with this. I forget. Oh, about just the idea that ratings disappear after the initial theatrical run.
Certainly. And it's interesting to see how that happens because there's, I think one of the things that makes that fascinating is, of course, the unrated version or the R-rated version is better than the censored version because it's not censored. They're able to show you the things they wanted to show you as opposed to the things that they were allowed to show you.
Yeah.
So just that happens is completely unsurprising to me. So I feel like we almost need, theatrical ratings and then DVD ratings.
Yeah, and I know... At least when I used to go to Blockbuster back in the day, Blockbuster, while I lived in New Jersey, had...
both ways!
When I was a kid, at least in New Jersey, the Blockbuster franchise they had there had aisles that were separated by, like, color codes. And so the green was everything up front that was meant for kids. And then as you went further back, it got darker and darker shades of red, which just eventually turned into, like, porn.
Wow, I did not realize. I never had a Blockbuster that sold porn.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure if that's just a regional thing or what.
No, my dad lived in Michigan, so I got not a ton of experience. It's just going north, but I got enough variation that I thought I would have experienced that if they did. That's crazy.
It's also just New Jersey, so you know.
Yeah, it's Jersey. I've been trying to do a Brooklyn accent all week. I got this customer coming in at Goodwill, and I have to write down their last names. And her last name is Bird, but spelled B-U-R-D. So I just want to do the Brooklyn thing. Bud. She's a bud. Anyway, sorry. That had nothing to do with anything, but no, I'm surprised that it's a thing, Steve, that Blockbuster had porn.
Well, it's not a thing anymore, but...
Well, it's not a thing anymore because Blockbuster isn't a thing
exactly. But, at least from that experience, there was a separate way of at least organizing or rating movies when they hit DVD, and that wasn't an official way or anything. There was no rule that said they had to do it that way, but the store did. And
yeah, just to give parents an idea of what they were letting their kids watch.
Exactly, and if you walk into a Target or a Walmart, the TV and the movies and everything is just kind of thrown in places. You have categories of new releases versus old versus TV versus movie and Blu-ray versus DVD, but there's no separation of this is the G section, this is the PG section.
And that pisses me off because Walmart's the fucking worst about it. They just throw all their movies in a bin. I'm like, well, good luck to me fucking digging through this for one particular film.
Yep, every time. I hate going to Walmart for movies.
Fuck that noise. It's I'll go check out the movie section real quick. Where are all the movie shelves? Hey, guy working here, where's all the movies? Oh, they're in these two bins. Well, fuck you too.
Look, if you don't care about selling me movies, I'm not going to buy any.
Yeah, I mean, come on. What the fuck? Displays. Come on now. I don't know. We need to just... No, fuck displays. Fuck bins. Let's just get a catalog. And then they go to the back and they grab it for you.
Oh, that'd be so great. Well, I mean, you could also get a system where you pick a movie and they're able to burn it onto a disc for you.
Maybe. Depends on exactly how that would work, but maybe.
I feel like you could probably get away with that. It might cost a lot initially, but over time.
No, I'm just saying in general, when I buy something on DVD, I actually do want the special features, even though I never watch them.
Well, I mean,
I just want the option.
You could probably, burn special features into the disc, too.
I'm sure you could. I'd want to know if that was an option with it or not.
Yeah.
So
Well, see,
maybe on that.
I mean, this has nothing to do with anything, but imagine if we eventually got to a place where you pick a movie, and instead of picking versions, you just buy the special features you want, like their toppings on a pizza.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, like, you want deleted scenes? Okay, you want commentary? Cool. You want the 600 languages? No, thank you.
Yeah, I want deleted scenes integrated into the movie. I love when I find movies that do that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
Where they take the deleted scenes and put them back in. Admittedly, it can't work with some of the movies where I'd like to see it the most. Green Lantern in particular. Because they just didn't finish the animation or even start the animation on deleted scenes.
Well, they did it with Punisher, where they like put the opening animated cinematic into the movie.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's really funny to go watch the deleted scenes on the Green Lantern Blu-ray because it's just Mark Strong and Ryan Reynolds in the motion capture suits, and they're trying to be as serious as possible, and that's when you realize just how much those damn CGI costumes really worked. Because they do look pretty fucking ridiculous.
And the more we talk, the more I come around on those CGI costumes.
Oh, well, I'm happy to know that. Now I just got to convince you that it's actually a good movie.
I mean, I don't understand why people call it the worst comic book movie ever. I just don't think it's great.
No, I'd agree with you there. It's not a great comic book movie, but it's a fun, fine one.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like we mentioned this earlier, but it's the kind of movie that I just turn on as, like, background noise every now and then.
Yeah,
not awful.
That's fair. That's a perfectly fair viewpoint. That's the thing is why I get so defensive about that movie, because people call it Catwoman, and it's not.
God, it is not Catwoman. It is... I'm trying to think of like a better compare. Oh, like, whatever. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, well, we keep getting off topic, so is there anything else we want to talk about with ratings before we wrap up here?
I think I'm good. I think we covered the whole gambit here, really.
Yep, we've said everything that can ever be said about rating systems, the MPAA, censorship in general, and just generally, don't censor art, because it's never good for art, it's never good for the society. I'm just trying to think of one example where censorship actively benefited art long term. Like, you can maybe think, oh, well, it made people more creative, so they had to figure out ways to get around it. But yeah, not long term, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of cases where you're having your hands tied behind your back is good, but that's different than messing with intent.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it doesn't challenge the society, it just perpetuates it. And no matter how conservative you are, you don't want your society to be perpetuated. You want it to move forward in some way. It's just in what particular way you want it to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what art's there for. It's there to inspire that.
Yep. Nice little final thought. I like that. Okay. So next week, we're going to be doing a Geeky Gentlemen Let's Play, but I don't have to worry about the technology crapping out because the Let's Play is already recorded, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep,
the video for the Let's Play is already recorded. Yes, we're going to be doing a post-commentary for a Let's Play that I recorded 2 years ago, and due to various issues, the audio didn't work out. I guess I'll go into it more next week. So we're going to be doing a post-commentary on the PlayStation 1 game Sheep Raider, or as it's called across the pond, Sheep, Dog, and Wolf. And that should be a lot of fun. Steve and I were talking about Looney Tunes last week, and so it just seemed like a good idea to do that.
Yeah. And
we're going to try to have some guests on, too. I like Let's Plays to be kind of like parties, almost.
Yeah, they're fun.
Makes it fun. Anyway, so that'll be next week. Strap yourself in next Sunday for a video roughly 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, and if you want to check out the game beforehand, it is on Ian's channel. Just Google or just YouTube search Sheep Raider.
Sid Part 2.
Yep.
Yep. So if you want to watch the Let's Play footage twice, go for it.
Or at least if you want to get a sense of what game we're talking about. Because I don't know a lot of people that have played Sheep Raider.
Yeah, and so maybe it'll get some eyeballs on it. Okay. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Politician.
And we're your Geeky Gentlemen. and we will no longer be discussing things because the MPAA has slapped us with a NC-17 rating, so we're just not going to be distributed on YouTube anymore.